I fell in love with the natural world long before I ever became a photographer. As a young boy, I spent countless hours exploring the nearby woodlands and creeks and things like that as I grew up in that little Mayberry-like little town of Worcester, Oklahoma. Well, everything in nature fascinated me back then, and those days laid the foundation for my becoming a nature photographer. You know, every nature photographer probably possesses the same kinds of things, really. That's being drawn to the beauty of the natural world. I've always believed in the magic of nature, regardless of what it provides us as visual images. Nature photographers instinctively recognize what makes a great moment of light. You know, sunrises and sunsets, to me, seem to portray the most magical of messages. And no two of them are ever really alike, and no two of them ever really relay the same message. You know, as the sun reaches for a new day, a hush comes over the world, as if it's like a conductor who raises his baton, and nature's musicians ready their instruments. You know, with the stroke of a skilled hand, the music of light builds until a crescendo of brightness is reached. And as the sun stretches for the end of the day, a climax of light explodes across nature's stage before it slowly fades into the realm of the night. You know, what's really, really interesting and good about all of this is that each performance develops its own personality. Capturing those personalities in a very unique way is the challenge for a nature photographer. Fall is perhaps my favorite season for a lot of reasons. Spring being most likely my least favorite, and that's probably because it's the most difficult season for me to photograph effectively, and it offers the shortest amount of peak opportunities. In the middle of all of this, you have winter, and it provides good overall opportunities, especially when it snows. And summer, well, it's by far the longest season, and seems to offer a wide array of photographic moments. Well, I approach each season differently, and because each of them requires a different way to measure those opportunities that they offer. When I search out moments of light, I look for what I call simplicity of composition. You know, it doesn't mean the photograph can't possess complex details, but the idea is to zero in on the most important elements. And it can at times become difficult to eliminate all that unnecessary clutter. The one thing you have to remember is that you are actually photographing light. It's less about the subject and more about how the light wraps itself around that subject, because that is what defines how to express why that particular moment was important to you as a nature photographer. Well, I absolutely love creating black and white nature photographs. More or less in the Ansel Adams style, but I always try to impart an element of my own vision, within those compositions. Black and white is a challenge. It's a challenging form of photography, mainly because you must adjust the way you view the world and to create a clear visual image in your mind of what you want the image to become. Black and white it removes the distraction of color and forces the image to stand alone on shape, form, contrast, texture, composition, and to relay that sense of remote connection across time. And in the long run, creating black and white compositions, I believe it helps you become a better overall photographer. And in many ways, it helps you to create better color images along the way. Well, when nature turns raw, that's when it gets really interesting, because it offers a lot more depth and energy in compositions. And nature in her rawest form generates an excitement to nature like no other single event can. It is also one of the most difficult to capture simply because of the random flavor it has. It isn't always that way. You have to kind of be ready for it when it does occur. So being there at the right time is the key, and timing, of course, is always vital. And both of those elements requires an instinct that is developed over time through experience. So when the weather turns bad, that is usually good for a photographer.
Here they come.
Well, wildlife is perhaps the most difficult subject for a nature photographer, simply because wildlife don't always cooperate. But when you follow this, when you attempt to photograph wildlife, regardless of what it is, it's not so much just snapping a portrait of some animal or critter or whatever it might be. But what makes it difficult is exposing for and capturing their natural personalities. Whenever I attempt to capture, wildlife, regardless of what it is, I do it in the sense of trying to capture an environmental portrait. often including more of the environment, with the whatever it is I'm photographing become a smaller portion of the composition. Sometimes you want to get closer, and to get closer to the wildlife, I often shoot from a makeshift blind. The idea is to conceal any movement, thus reducing the risk of being detected. And deer, are really especially sensitive to the presence of people with their keen eyesight and hearing, and especially with their sense of smell. So you have to use the wind to your advantage. And it's really a matter of understanding their habits and how they sense and see the world. And as with any kind of nature photography, light is the key ingredient. But it takes time, patience, and knowledge of their habits, and most times hard work. I spent a good many years back in my earlier days as a hunter, and those skills translate well into nature photography. But ultimately, in the end, when that one wildlife moment presents itself, well, it's about as rewarding as any photograph that you might ever take. Outdoor skills are essential to becoming a nature photographer, and over the years I've explored various elements of becoming an outdoorsman. Things like backpacking, canoeing, hiking, hunting, camping, and they've all played a role in that endeavor. I especially enjoy the physicality and freedom of canoeing. And canoe camping, and for it in many ways, is a throwback to historical times with a rich history filled with amazing adventures. Well, during the old fur trapping voyager days of the late 18th and early 19th centuries, hardy young men braved the dangers and often hostile elements of nature as they paddled large freighter-like or freighter-type and small canoes deep into the interior of North America. And high across time, far removed from their adventures, but in so many ways I feel a kinship of sorts with their stories as I glide my canoe across calm waters and camp on some distant lakeside beach. Doing so allows me to gain a perspective of nature I might otherwise not have. I most always have my camera close at hand when I'm out like that, and that usually allows me to capture unique moments and angles of light as they occur that I might not be able to get otherwise. If I am honest about my photography, I would have to say at best I've created maybe 4 or 5 images that stand apart from all the rest. And even so, I'm still searching for that one elusive great photograph. And sometimes I feel as though I'll never truly find it on my own anyway. But even so, I do believe eventually nature will speak her voice and call me toward the best of what she has to offer. Thank you. Thank you so very much for joining me on this grand adventure as a nature photographer.